Hi everyone and welcome back to Songs Utan Art and me, Annika Jöran Rodell, and my blog about artful leadership for change. And today I want to talk about some tools that I use. I often use them. My sword and my shield. But of course I don't use them in this outer reality, but I have access to them in my inner reality. And why I want to talk about this today is that last week I met one of my friends, and she's a middle manager, and she told me about a meeting that she had with a manager higher up in the organization. And she was, she had maybe an hour or 1.5 hours that she just talked about this experience. She was frustrated, she was angry, she felt shame, she felt diminished. There were a lot of things there. And I said to her, I believe that you are exposed to, I have to check it up, master suppression techniques, in Swedish, härskarteknik. One thing I use that I think is useful is to prepare yourself in your inner world. Because as I asked my friend about her preparation for this meeting, she said, well, I wasn't expecting this treatment, so I was just prepared for the content of the meeting, not so much for this treatment and the way she was the way she was treated. And I talked and I told her a story from my life, and I thought I would tell you the same story now about the sword and the shield, because that is something that I have learned to use in my education to find, if I have a sword, how does it feel to swing this sword? And now, as I've been using it a lot, it's big. It's quite huge, actually. And I feel that I have the power within me to cut through and to go to attack if I have to. But I can also just put it down in the shield. No, put it down in the sheath. Yes. The sheet for the sword, and let it hang in this invisible sheet at my right side. And then I have a big shield here on my left arm. So I really feel that I can protect myself. I can be clear about where my boundaries are. And to have this inner access to my sword and my shield helps me in my outer reality, even if I never have even tried to have a sword in my outer reality. Okay, so the story is, when I worked as a therapist, an expressive art therapist in the psychiatric ward, we started up having tuition, a group tuition with a psychotherapist, a really good one. And when we came to her, we should talk about the difficulties in the work. And the first times we went there, I was terrified. I was totally silent. I didn't say anything. And my colleagues, after a while, asked me when we sat there, Annika, what's the matter with you? Why aren't you saying anything? And I just bursted out in tears and cried. And the only thing I could say, looking at this tutor, was, I believe you're gonna kill me if I tell you what I have on my mind in my work. And of course, it wasn't literally that I thought she would kill me, but the feeling inside was that it was so dangerous. And of course, it's about psychologically death, not physical death. But I was really surprised myself of this what was revealed to me from myself. And I talked to one of my friends from my colleagues from my education about this, and she said, "Do you want to work with this?" "Okay," I said. And she then asked me, "Okay, when you think of going to this room where you work, what kind of room is it if you look at it as a symbol?" And the first thing I heard was, "It's a church." "Okay, it's like a church," she said. "And what do you do with your weapons?" And I also quite immediate said that I leave them in the weapon room. It's a Swedish word. I don't think it's in English. It's in the porch, in the hall there in the porch, where you leave your weapons when you go into the sacred room. And then she asked, "Do you think that's wise to get in there without your weapons?" And I said to myself, "No, I don't think so." And then she asked me to take my sword. And then I realized that my sword was sitting in the ground and I couldn't get it up. I tried to drag it up, but I couldn't. And then she asked me, "So why is it so heavily connected to the ground?" And I looked down under the ground in my inner reality, and then I realized that the sword was attached to a diamond. And when she asked me what the diamond stood for, I heard myself saying, "It's the diamond of innocence." And in that instant, when I heard myself saying that, I understood that this was one of my defense mechanisms to say, like, "I don't know, I haven't been there, I haven't done anything." As the sixth of 6 children, I really needed to find myself innocent. So I know this defense mechanism very well, but I didn't recognize it in this situation before I worked with this sword. And then I also understood that if I'm going to be able to have access to my sword, I have to decide if I'm going to let the innocent, the diamond of the innocence, I can't have both. I have to choose. So I chose to try to take the sword up from the ground, and I dragged it up, and it was like in that room that it was a sound even if this was in the inner world. And then I stood there with my sword, and it was really huge, and I could feel that I really gained power in myself. And then I put it down in the sheet on my right side, and I really felt that I gained my old power back. So when I came back to the next group tuition at this tutor, before I went in, I stood on the toilet. I went into the toilet so I could be for myself, and I stood there. I took up my sword, I swung it, so I knew that I had the ability, that I had access to it. I put it down, I felt my shield, and I became very present. And then I went in to the room together with the others, and I never felt this fear again in that room. From that moment, I could sit there, be present, talk about how and why I did things in my work as a therapist. Because sometimes you are trying to do your best and it don't work out as the best. So that's very important to talk about. When I have these tools ready in my inner life, it's much easier for me to be ready in my outer life. So I told this to my friend and she got inspired, so we will see what happens. And well, maybe this is something that you also can practice, try, to have access to your power in your inner reality. The sword and the shield to protect yourself and also to be able to cut through and say no. Or cut through and say, what do you mean? I don't understand. Not staying quiet and being suppressed by a master. Okay, so I think I stop there for now and I will go out in the sun. I'm so happy. It was so cloudy before and now the sun is back. So see you next week, I hope. Bye.